I will now introduce to you our speaker today. It's Sister Rejoice Hoedoafia. She's a member of Sisters of Divine Love and Mercy from Ghana. Sister Rejoice is currently a psychology lecturer and interim head of the Mental Health Department School of Medicine of the University for Development Studies, Tamil. She's also a member of Global Safeguarding Alliance, a member of the Tamil Archdiocesan Child Safeguarding Committee, and a member resource person for training pastoral agents, children, seminarians, and non-Catholics on safeguarding young people with the Learning Child Protecting Programs of the Pontifical Gregorian University. Sister Rejoice is a practicing psychologist, and her passion and mission goes to the young people and adults in the Tamil Teaching Hospital. Let us welcome Sister Rejoice.
Good morning, everyone. I am excited this morning to share with all of us something about accountability to children. And I would love to begin by looking at the general theme that we have been working with. It says, sustaining organizational accountability. And when I think about the word sustaining, to me, it means that there is something that is already in existence. There is something that is alive and for which we want to sustain and keep going. And so for this reason, my presentation with regards to accountability to children is that we are already doing something. We are here in this room because we want to do something. Other people at home who are watching us and who are listening want to do something and are doing something. The question is, how do we want to do this, go about this sustainability? Those who are doing something, please keep doing it. Those who are in slumber or who are asleep, we want to wake them up so that they can do something. That is why we are here this morning. So the agenda that I put out for us for today is that we'd have some introduction, and that would have to do with also some explanation of some concepts. Then we will look at the rationale for accountability to children, the role of the laity in accountability to children, barriers to accountability to children, then some efforts to address these barriers to accountability to children. And then we will have some recommendations or some suggestions for us. In my opinion, accountability to children or safeguarding of children is everybody's responsibility to keep others safe, especially the children and the vulnerable people. In many cases, we hear about church. The church must, the church should. Who is the church? I believe each one of us here is a member of this church and we have a responsibility. Each one of us have something to contribute and something to do, and we must do it. If one of us, anyone who is in contact with children or with somebody who will be vulnerable in any way, it is our duty to be very vigilant, to watch, to be able to recognize if there are any signs, anything, any semblance of abuse. And if we need to be able to record this, we need to be able to report, also to respond when the need be. And this means everyone, teachers, doctors, religious people, friends, families. Everyone has a duty and everyone has a responsibility to do something for our children. I probably would be stressing a lot on family in this presentation because I believe that life is nurtured and life grows first in the family before any other person becomes a part of it. And so along the line, it might sound like I'm focusing or stressing a lot on family and parenting, but this is my conviction that if we get it right from the beginning, where the seed is germinating, we water it, we nurture it, the mentality that we want to see changes in, the attitudes that we want to see changed, we will find them. And I would also say that when I talk about nurturing and forming people in the family, to some extent we can also extend it to the formation houses and the seminaries, even though they are not families in quote. But those are the places where the religious men and women and the priests are formed. And that is where we can begin to form people to have this culture of accountability, so that at the end of the day, before they become the bosses, they have an idea that it is important to be accountable to the people that you are serving. And I want to give a little example. We had an exam for the students in the seminary, and I asked a question to one of them. I said, what does it mean for you to be accountable to the people in your parish? And I was a little shocked, even though it was expected. The first thing he said was, I will make sure that I'm transparent with the finances of the parish. And I said, that is good, but I think life goes beyond money. The most important thing are the people in the parish, the persons in the parish. And so it's something for you to think about. And from where I stand, I believe money probably is the last thing to think about when it comes to being accountable. And so this is the kind of culture we are coming from. And it is important that we are able to form people to understand that the human person should be the center of everything first, before any other thing. So I would begin to talk about child because we are talking about accountability to children. Basically, we can say that a child is a person who is below the age of 18. And in most cultures, 18 years is set up as the age where somebody is mature. But in some situations, in certain local situations, they might put it lesser than 18. In some places, they will say it is 16, depending on where you find yourself. And I say also that children are individuals who are still largely dependent on an adult for their necessities of life. This can be we can contest this very much. It doesn't mean that if I am helping my parents or I am beginning to learn how to be responsible and I am doing some things to help me sustain myself and to support the family means that I can be independent regardless of who my parents are or who is meant to support me. To the largest extent, I still need to be loved. I still need to be cared for. And so most children are still dependent. In different cultures and in different societies, children are perceived very differently. In some places, children are seen and heard and loved. In some places, children can only be seen but not heard. In some places, people are so excited when the child is born, and after that, what follows, nobody knows. You see them on the streets, you see them crossing anyhow, and you ask yourself, where is the mother or where is the father of this child? The excitement is almost over. And so in other places, the child is very precious. The child is cared about. Even in some cases, almost everybody in the family, the generations of the family, plays a lot of focus and attention in loving and caring for this child. And this is the differences in how we perceive children in different places. So a child, sometimes we say, we want to take care of you so that you become a very good person in the future. But I think it's not only about the future. It's also today. In the present, in the moment, the child is a person with his own dignity, made in God's image and loved in the environment that they find themselves. And for that matter, they're not just another person or somebody whom we are anticipating to do something later on in life and not now. Children have an inherent and universal right to a life free of violence, abuse, exploitation, and neglect, and to survive and to develop and to thrive as human beings. Yet today, in more than 1 billion children, about half of the world's children experience violence every year. I took this information from the Center for Disease Control from their website. And so we can see that it is very, very important for us to do something. And doing something means learning to be accountable to children. Where I come from, it's easy to hear, let the government do this, the government. But it goes beyond the government. So the government has the responsibility, or the state has the responsibility for ensuring children's rights to protection against violence in all its forms. But also non-governmental organizations, faith-based organizations, and in fact all citizens in every country, everywhere in the world, have the responsibility and a duty to be accountable for the protection of young people. Unfortunately, in most parts of the world, children do not have regular access to a meaningful accountability mechanisms. In some areas, in some countries, and in some cultures, children know I can call in 911 for help. There are helplines and hotlines everywhere. In some places, there is nothing, barely nothing, not even the nearest neighbor to talk to. You might take the benevolence of someone who is passing by and who is courageous enough to be able to help them. And so it is one of the areas that if we want to be accountable to children, that we were able to put in place systems that allows them to be able to say what they need, to be able to hold us accountable. In some areas, children have no voice, no platforms, no access to recourse, and are not meaningfully engaged in decision-making that affects their protection. But I will say that when we give children the opportunity to be part and to engage in decision-making, even in the smallest things, it makes them feel important, it makes them feel secure, it makes them comfortable, they trust us, and they are willing to come to us when they are in trouble, because they know that they matter. So, in spite of the fact that in the current decade, a lot of survivor-affirming awareness against violence is very keen. A lot of people are beginning to understand. A lot of people are beginning to speak about it and want to do something. And it's very easy to talk about abuse in the church, in many places, but to talk about abuse in the family, it's very scary for most people. To say that my mother or my father is the one who is abusing me, nobody wants to talk about that. It's still an area of taboo to some extent, and where we need to pay attention also, so that in our work in safeguarding in the church, we remember that we want to make everywhere safe, the church environment, but also the home, so that for most people, we need to have a safe haven. Where is my safe haven? The assumption is that your home could be the safe haven where you run to when you are in trouble. But for some children, there is no safe haven. They rather run away from home. And it is important that in our work, we remember this so that we keep the interest. The need to be interested in the concerns of children who are near me, who are in my environment, who are in my home, those who are my nieces and nephews, should be the same. I should have the same sense of urgency when I hear about children elsewhere who are suffering, who are being abused. Because the tendency to think that I am not seeing it, I'm not feeling it, and so it's not with me. That is a very selfish way of looking. It's like just looking at me inside and nothing else. But we are connected to each other in various ways, whether we like it or not. It's not only technology that is connecting and making us a global people, but intrinsically, we are connected to each other. We are one family. And so when one part of the family is not well, the other part would have to do something and we don't have to sit around and say that it is not near me. It's not my niece. It's not my nephew. Now comes accountability. I picked this from Google. Just to say how complex this term accountability can be. So accountability is in the center there, but we have looking at responsibility, commitment, reliability, being answerable, being dutiful, culpable, taking ownership of our own, call it successes and failures as well. Okay. So accountability, what is it? We have heard the day before yesterday, and we heard yesterday, and today we are here. I want to add that accountability is a social value that assesses and measures the depth of one's responsibility. We want to see how profound is my responsibility. It is, I would dare to even say that it is a virtue that we need to cultivate. Accountability continuously evaluates the successes with which we measure up to our responsibility. I can say, as a safeguarding officer, how am I accountable to myself, to the children, to the church, and to everybody? Because for me, I say that accountability is an examination of conscience, beginning from myself. Where am I? And if I know where I am, that I can adjust to that and do something. When I am doing well, I would keep doing better and adding to it. Where I am not doing very well, that I would also humbly accept that I am not doing well, or I am not living up to my responsibilities, and that I will accept and not try to look for excuses, not try to blame somebody, not try to adjust. Because sometimes it's easy to say, I've been trying my best, but the priest in charge is not helpful. Yes, they may not be helpful, but I would not stop doing what I need to do. Sometimes I may not have the resources, but I have myself as a resource person. And I have some talents and some gifts that I can sacrifice my time. That is already something to give. And so it's important that I accept my challenges, my limitations, and not try to find ways to discard them. So it is really an experience of either real or perceived, of being held responsible for what one says or what one does. I need to know that I must be responsible to what I say and what I do every day, every moment. Because if I am asked to respond to what I said. The last day we were talking about, in our group, about responding and what press releases that people give, or even the issue of apologies that we render or promises that we give. We promise that we will do the best from now on. If I say that to anybody, I need to know that this is a serious matter, that I can be held responsible if I did not do what I said I would do. This is how scary it can be sometimes, but it is possible. So accountability then enables us to adapt measures that will strengthen the weakest points where we are limited, and to complete the task entrusted to us with responsibility. We all want to be responsible, and we need to find the areas. As we evaluate ourselves, there will be some areas where we find ourselves not doing too well. We can improve, we can get the formation that we need to do that. Accountability also has the potential to dispel doubts, fears, and suspicions. If I am accountable, beginning in my home, to my children, I said to my child, I am going to the market. When I'm coming back, I would bring you a candy bag. If I did not bring it back, it is part of accountability to my child to say, my dear, sorry, I meant to bring you back something, but unfortunately, I couldn't do that. I would find another way to get it to you. That is a way of being accountable. And if I taught my child well how to ask for accountability from me, even when I got home, if I didn't say anything to them, the child would feel free enough to ask me, Mom, where is the candy you said you will send to me? You will bring to me when you come back. That's what I mean by dispelling doubts and fears, because my child is not afraid to ask me and to hold me responsible for what I promised her. And I am not afraid to tell the truth of what it is like, what I have done and what I couldn't do. And that way, there is no suspicion. They can trust me when I say I'll bring something, and if I didn't bring it, and I give an explanation, it can be taken. And this can be applied also to church as well. What are we saying to our parishioners? What are we saying to the children we are teaching in schools? What are we saying to the people around us? We need to be accountable. Accountability is careful and diligent in the discharge of my duties. I know what my duties are, and I try my best to do them well. And it also proves that I can be trustworthy when I am accountable. Accountability also boosts confidence and reassures people who are looking up to us. People who we are, if I would say, heroes to. Those who admire us can say that this person, this priest, this bishop is very accountable. They say and do what they say they would do. And for that matter, it's reassuring. And you can actually stick out your neck for somebody like that when you are sure. Accountability also paves the way for greater responsibility and gives sense to the fulfillment and satisfaction. When I am doing what I am asked to do, what I am tasked to do, what I am called to do, and I do it well, sometimes I don't need a reward. Sometimes I don't need the thank you that we often look for. But there is an inner joy, an inner satisfaction that I'm being a good and faithful servant to some extent to what I want to do. And that motivates me to keep going on every day to be responsible and to do my duties. So accountability to children in safeguarding, it's very essential. It's very important that we can give voice to the voiceless, that the rights of children are respected, their safety and well-being are protected, but also that it's not only about giving them voice in some cases, but it's also inviting them to be part of it, to be part of finding solutions, to be part of finding answers, but also to be part of creating awareness as well. I just want to go. Okay. So establishing clear lines of communication and putting in mechanisms for feedback and complaints and responding well are all aspects that are very important when it comes to accountability to children. Why do we say this? Because if children have the right information, if their children are formed and they are aware of different things, they know what to do. They know who to call. My understanding is that we want to have innocent children, but we don't want to have ignorant children. We want our children to know. We want them to be aware. We want to empower them so that they can give, so that they are able to participate fully in what it means to be accountable to them. They can ask us questions that are very challenging that we have to answer, even when we don't want to answer them. When it comes to regular monitoring and evaluation of our safeguarding practices, in the first talk we heard about inviting independent people to be part of this so that we are not always internally focused and doing it ourselves, but we can have oversight of other people. We can have volunteers. We can also have experts who will hold us accountable, that will check and balance for us. And in doing this, children can be very good as well. And when I say children in this sense, they might not be the very little ones, but the young ones, teenagers, who could be very much involved in some focus group activities that can brainstorm and that can actually hold us responsible when it comes to monitoring and evaluating what we are doing. Holding individuals and organizations accountable for any harm caused to children and young people, and also taking appropriate actions to prevent future harm. If we do this, we are being responsible to our children, because we need to be able to prevent harm, prevent them from being in harm's way, in the way of anything that can harm them. And so we are called or encouraged to do our best to put in appropriate measures to prevent any form of abuse. I put in some of the proverbs that we use when it comes to talking about children. Some of them are not helpful in certain sense, but some can be very helpful when it comes to being accountable. The African proverb that says, "It takes a village to raise a child." It can be problematic, but I don't want to go in that side. I want to look at it from the positive perspective, meaning that children are the responsibility of the entire community, and everyone plays a role in their upbringing and in their well-being. That means that everyone is involved in protecting this child, and no one should take advantage of a child. That is, if we go by what this Proverbs really means and what it's meant to be doing. Okay. In some cases, some bad people can take advantage of this and lure somebody to harm them because, okay, you are my responsibility as well, so I ask you to go and buy me something. And in the process, trapped and raped, that is a different story. But as I said, I want to stand on the positive side of this. An Arabic proverb that says, "Teach your children swimming, and they will know how to save themselves when they fall into water." And what this is trying to say is that preparing children with important skills and knowledge will empower them to overcome challenges or difficult situations. In our case, when we empower our children, when we give them the skills that they need, they would be able to talk to us when they are in trouble. They'll be able to talk to an elder when they are in trouble. Or even if it is not them, if they see their colleague in trouble, they will say something. Also, there is a French one, not that I speak French, but these are translations. "Child who shows the man as morning shows the day." And this says that a person's character and qualities can often be observed in their early years, indicating their future paths. I chose this, I see what this is saying is that how we bring up our children, how we support our children, what we give to them, what we module for them. If we module accountability, they would grow up being accountable where they find themselves, in most cases. If we model something else to them, probably they will be modeling something else. It's not always 100% that we give, what we give and how we bring up children, they will end up the way we want them to be. But in most cases, we try our best. And I must continue to apologize to parents. Sorry if I am insisting on this a lot, not to put any burdens or guilt on anyone, but it's important that we know that this nurturing comes from home as well. And then there is the Irish proverb that says, "A child's life is like a piece of paper on which every passerby leaves a mark." And the meaning is that every interaction and experience a child has shapes their development and shapes their character. And so it's very important that the people that the children come in contact with, what we offer them, what we write on the plain sheet is what they're going to grow up with. So from now, if we want the mentality and the culture of accountability, the culture of protection and safeguarding minors, this is the time to write that on the sheets of papers for the little ones, and that would help shape them. So we're looking at the rationale for accountability to children. There are many of them. The first one is that we want to be accountable to children because we want to protect them. We want them to be safe. Accountability ensures that children are protected from abuse and that measures are in place to prevent further abuse. And so if the measures are in place, if we try our best to protect them, then we will have safe environment, we will have safe homes, safe churches, safe schools. Also, one of the other rationale is that of justice and redress. Especially holding abusers accountable and also acknowledging the harm done to the child and seek to rectify the injustices they have experienced and have suffered. We are also being accountable to them because we want them to have justice, we want them to have redress, and closer to that is the deterrence. That when perpetrators are held accountable, when we don't cover up, when we don't think about our reputations, whether it's in church, whether it's in family, and we come out and take perpetrators accountable and let the law take its course, we know that for some people, this can be a deterrent for them, that the punishment or there are consequences for any behavior that each person puts in place. So if I abuse someone, if I neglect my duty and through that somebody is abused, I have to acknowledge that, and there are consequences that come with that. Also, we have to look at empowerment and validation. We need to validate, we need to empower our children. The reason why we want to be accountable is because we want our children to know more about the environment that they live in. We want them to know the joys and the goodness in the world they are in, but we also need them to know that there are also dangers, there are also challenges, there are also difficulties. There are good people, but there are also some people that can harm them. So if we empower them like this and validate them, not shut them down, not ask them to be quiet, then there's worth doing this. And that is why we are working in trying to empower children. We could talk about prevention and awareness creation. It's one of the reasons why we want to be accountable. Also, one of the reasons for accountability to children, we can talk about restoration and rehabilitation. That is when the abuse has already occurred. Earlier on, we want to empower them to prevent something from happening. But if something has already happened, it is also part of our accountability that we can do something, we can offer help, we can be able to help restore to some extent. We probably cannot repair or completely heal the harm, but at least there will be something that is offered to them, some rehabilitation for the children, but also for perpetrators as well, if the possibility is there. Also, why we are doing this is ethical, and it's an ethical and moral imperative that we I would say as church, as parents, as civil society, we have a moral obligation to protect and to be accountable to young people. Specifically, I want to say a few things that has to do with being accountable from the perspective of our church. We can say that we are trying our best. In most cases, that's where we say we are trying our best, but our best is not enough yet. And we want to sustain that by deepening that. And so one of the reasons why we must take care of our children is because they are persons made in God's image. And for that matter, there is an inherent human dignity that they have. There is sacredness to them. They are a gift to us. We don't have the capacity to make children in that sense. It's a gift that God has given us. And if God has given you a gift, you have to take care of that gift. Because at the end of the day, He would ask you, what did you do with the gift that I gave to you? And for that reason, we have to be accountable to God so that we know that whatever gift that is given to us, we are answerable to taking care of that gift. I would also say that besides talking about moral obligations, that the world around, if anybody that people are looking up to, is the Catholic Church. We do many things besides proclaiming the gospel. In some places or the places I come from, a lot of people depend on the church to teach them in schools, to provide healthcare. All of the pastoral engagements that we have come from the church. And people rely and depend on us and are very, try to trust us very much, sometimes to the default, to some extent. And so for that matter, I feel I have an obligation to be accountable to these people who trust me so much, who respect me, and who thinks that I represent God somehow to them. They see me and they think about God, not because I am God. And for that matter, it means that I have to be responsible to them and I need to take care of them. Also, Scripture says that, or from the scriptural perspective, we know that at least from the Gospel according to Matthew, chapter 18:6 says that if anyone calls one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it will be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and to be drawn into the depths of the sea. So the word of God is encouraging us and calling us and actually telling us how serious it is when we do not take care, when we are not responsible to God's children. And so for that matter, it is important that we do our best. Not that we can do it all, because we are humans and we might be limited in some way, but we can always draw other people and learn from other people to do our best. And that is why it's important to have teams so that we can support each other in doing this work. We can do it by ourselves. Now I want us to look at the role of the laity in accountability to children in our church. We will all agree with me that the clergy are just few. When you look at the church in totality, wherever you go, when you go in the church, the majority are the lay people. And that means that we can do a lot. So the lay people are called to help, to support, to collaborate, but also to be vigilant. To be vigilant in their homes, to be vigilant in calling those who need to be called to action to do what they need to do. I believe that in most of our, call them pastoral councils or meetings in the various parishes, most of the people there are lay people. We have voices. We can speak. And if we all agree on something, I believe that our pastor will be convinced that it's very important and we need to do something about it. It's not always, because it's not a democracy to some extent. It's not always, but when we have a voice, when we are convinced and we insist, they listen to us. Because some of them are our friends also. They come to us for advice. We can talk to them. I would also add that those of you who are in academia, those who can help in the formation of the priest, in the formation of the religious, in the formation of your own children, please do so. Because there is a lot that religious people, religious leaders, priests can learn from us. We have a lot. And when they call on us to share our experiences, that we are open to share those with them. In this room, I can see that there are many lay people who are very enthusiastic, who are very convinced and very committed and doing so much work in their dioceses and in the organizations that they represent. And this is a plus. And keep going on, but encourage others to join the train, so that there'll be more of us who will be moving forward to get this done. So, teaching children about personal accountability is very important. We can be accountable to them, but we need to also teach them to be accountable. In most cases, we talk a lot about the rights of the children. We also need to teach them that they also have duties as well. And if you teach them well, as I say, they will grow up to be responsible. So teaching and modeling accountability to children will empower them to learn, to take personal responsibility for their actions. Also, we can do this in various ways. We don't need to do this with that stiffness and call it, in my place, discipline that might lead to abuse of spanking children and other things. But we can do that in a very gentle, loving way. We can tell them stories that the end of the story would tell them they will learn a lesson about responsibility. We can also look at the structures, put in certain structures, and guide our children to learn how to be responsible persons. Because anyone who learns to be responsible very early, I believe, will be responsible later in life as well. And as I said before, I believe this may be helpful in the cultural and systemic changes, the mentality change that we are looking forward to happening now and the future. But as I said, there are many people who run little schools for children, schools for young children, for teenagers. If we are doing it right at home, and then they come to the school and there is a similar thing. They go to the church, there is a similar thing. They go to the gym. The consistency in what we give to them, in helping them to be accountable, would help them in the future. As I said, now with themselves and their relations to their friends, but also when they grow up, they would be very responsible in the work that they do, in their vocations, and wherever they find themselves. I found this that helps me to tell the story of how to teach. It's as I said, it's also another Google thing that I found. But it helps say what I want to say, so I took it for myself. So we let your kids know their responsibilities, and that means that ensuring that there is no confusion. You sit them down, you play with them, and you prepare with them what it means to be responsible and show it to them. And they do that. And then we need consistency, as I said. Consistency is very helpful. When teaching accountability, consistently integrate it into your child's behavior and routine. So we just don't teach, but we make sure that we put it to action. And then we need to give our children age-appropriate chores. I can remember as a little girl cooking along with my mother, going to fetch water, even though I cannot carry a bucket, but I carry a little cup to follow from the riverside to the house. That means that I am learning. Somehow she's teaching me how to be responsible, how to do some things for myself. And I was happy to come and pour a little bit of cup of water in the big basin, feeling that I'm doing something. So it's just enough that we can give age-appropriate chores to our children. And this might be beneficial to them and make them more self-reliant in the future. We also have to show children how to change their behaviors as well. Teaching children personal responsibility is not about punishing them or disciplining them to the extreme, but it's about teaching them to make amends for intentional and unintentional behavior. And then it's good to set examples. You cannot tell me to do something and you do something different. We learn by observing. We learn to see what the people around us are doing. So if they are telling me to do something else, they are showing me what it means to be accountable many times, and yet they themselves are not accountable, then there's nothing for me. So we learn by observing what it is. Then now we look at some barriers to accountability. And I try to look at it in 3 facets, as in individual factors, relational factors, and social factors that leads to So here we have these barriers. First, you look at them from the perspective of the person within. Then you look at the relationships, the unequal power balance that we have. You can also see that trust and dependence is one thing. And if already there is dysfunction, either at the home or wherever they find themselves, it's going to be difficult to be accountable. and then the lack of support. And then from the social perspective, we can think about stigma, labeling that we do, that can prevent children from saying what is going on with them or from telling us what they need to know. And then there is lack of awareness and resources, not necessarily monetary, but sometimes personnel, to be able to create the awareness, to be able to give the time, or even the material that is needed to form people might not be available. In some cases, there are inadequate legal and social protection systems that are available. Thank you. We have taken a lot of your time, and I believe that all that I want to say is that we remember that accountability to children is key. It's key because we have to start it from the beginning, and we make them the center and teach them. And then at the end of the day, they will arrive where we want to see them. They will be happy, and we will be happy, and we'll have a safe home, safe church, safe environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Rejoice, for your insightful presentations. Your message carries us to reflect our encountering experience. So thank you. And we are running out of time a little bit, so we will quickly go to the break and proceed to the working group, and we return to the main hall at 12:15. Thank you. Hello? Yes? We shall now gather responses from the group work. So please share your 1 points of concern to the whole group, and I will call out the group's numbers starting from 1 to 10. So please make sure that your group reporter is ready. So shall we begin with group 1? Yes.
Thank you. I think it'd be fair to say that the responses to the presentation in the group were divided. Some people were very, very positive. Others, to be honest, were disappointed at the lack of practical application of how to be accountable to children. What did emerge in our conversation was that significant cultural differences, even with the concept of being accountable to children, which would not be understood or valued everywhere. But all of us said that there are challenges when it comes to empowering children and really believing they have rights.
Thank you. Thank you, Group 1. Group 2?
We also reflected on the diverse realities in different countries and cultures, and actually implemented a kind of accompaniment of one another in focusing up certain issues, and ended with a sort of a common ground on the concern for the ever-increasing plague of pornography.
Thank you, Group 2. Group 3? Group 3? Okay, so shall we go to Group 4? Yep.
Thank you. Group 4, basically, I think we landed on accountability to children necessarily means involving parents, involving families, involving teachers and schools, and other peers. We talked a lot about peer-to-peer abuse with children and students. We talked a lot about what they experience online, behind the scenes, and how parents and teachers and everyone is accountable for keeping them safe in all those different areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Group 4. May I call Group 5?
So hi, for Group 5, there was a need for greater intentionality to have collective outcomes from this conference, including also that children have a voice at the conference. So basically, we saw the need for personal, local, and collective outcomes, but especially what the ISC could possibly provide would be a framework for collective ongoing outcomes from the participants here.
Thank you. Group 6?
Good afternoon, church. Our group 6 started off our discussion with the word empowerment and the reality that the onus of this responsibility should not necessarily rest on the shoulders of our children. Let our children be children. But if indeed we're looking at empowerment, perhaps empowerment to parents, ways we could offer support for parents so that they can become good parents, and at the same time offering appropriate curriculum using language of our children. One of our participants said the language of our children is play. And if you stop to look at the way we play these days, it's so complicated. It's not the way children play. And then finally, in regard to the proverb, it takes a village to raise a child, the reality is that village has changed. And the church has a very important role in trying to get this village back to the way a village should be, building these bridges and being able to create relationships and nurture these ways of being able to communicate and be church. So this portion has been brought to you by the 7 sacraments, specifically the sacraments of initiation. Thank you.
Thank you, Group 6. Group 7?
Group 7 found this working session very emotional. We felt like, as we talked specifically about accountability to children, that something broke open. And so we talked about the scope of safeguarding and the sacred and unique position of the Catholic Church as a global institution to break through trauma that's occurring in all kinds of settings by the offerings and the models that our church is providing in all of its different stages of evolution. We felt both overwhelmed and hopeful. That's been an ongoing tension in our group. But we definitely focused on the dignity of the children to have their innocence, but also be empowered, to be safeguarded. We felt the synodality of the process that this program has given us an opportunity to participate in. Thank you.
Thank you, Group 7. Group 8?
Yeah, we talked a lot in Group 8 about the multicultural aspects of safeguarding, and the only thing that I think we want to add to what's already been said is that we felt it's very important that particularly maybe Western countries don't consider themselves to be advanced in terms of safeguarding, because we need to be very mindful of the cultures, the individual cultures that people are working in, and see safeguarding as something anthropological, and be very, very mindful and respectful of the cultures that we need to work with them, work from them, work for them, and not see ourselves as being more advanced in a journey.
Thank you, Group 8. Group 9? Yeah.
Spanish-speaking group. What we have highlighted from the presentation is the emphasis that was placed on the fact that the responsibility of being accountable belongs to the adults who are around children. That leads us to conclude that the spirit of rejoice, from which the ecclesial concept of accountability is rooted, must start on having one ear in the gospel and another ear on people. Thank you.
Thank you. Group 9, Group 10.
Group 10 also talked about the cultural differences and age appropriateness and tried to come up with some common agreement, and this is what we came up with. Accountability, ultimately, accountability to children is the most important type of accountability that we've addressed, we thought. We all have a shared responsibility to raise children so that hopefully harm does not occur, but if it does, children can count on the church to help. To do this, we should all help raise children by not preparing them for a particular road, but by preparing them for whatever road may lie ahead.
Thank you, Group 10. May I call again on Group 3?
Sorry. In our group, we really dealt with the aspects taken by Sister Rejoice on accountability to children. And we said there is need to open up the space in the church for children to be able to speak out and speak up. Educating children, parents, and the community so that they know that a lot is happening concerning abuse of children, because some people are still keeping quiet concerning it, whereas it's all over the internet. There is also the need to empower children so that they know that when they speak up, they are not going to be punished for what they are saying, and that there will be succor for them, and there will be protection for them to be able to live normal life. We identify the fact that children that grow up with father being absent might also have certain disadvantage in that at times the grandparents or the single mother might look up onto certain female adults to help such children, and at times they might abuse such children who are helpless because they think that they cannot speak. So on the whole, we have seen it as being very important that the church should be accountable concerning children, and not just the church, the parents and the community, society as a whole, knowing that children of today are leaders of tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you for all the responses. So we will now open up for questions and answer.
Thank you, Sister, for your presentation this morning. One of the things that came up in our group, which I noted in the points that came back, also occurred in group number 4, is the question of peer-to-peer abuse, which wasn't something you can't cover everything, but I wondered if you would speak to that from your own situation, because in a number of countries, this is something that has been a reality for many years and seems to be increasing. So accountability of children to children, really.
So I think, thank you very much for the question. I think this is an important reality that didn't come up in my slides, but it's very important because I know, and I've experienced also, children abusing other children in the home, in the school, and even in the church. And we can talk about all forms of abuse, as in sexual abuse, emotional abuse, as in teasing and labeling, abuse in the media space, where people are texting and saying nasty things about other people that have caused some children to even contemplate suicide and all of that. So the reality is that abuse is real, and it cuts across various aspects. If I were talking about abuse in particular, I probably would have mentioned that. But thank you for reminding me, and it's a good point to look at and to remind ourselves that when we are talking about being accountable, and I always go back to the fact that if I learn, I have a statement somewhere that I said, at my home or at home, if I learn and know how to be accountable, I would be an ambassador of accountability wherever I find myself. That means either to my peers, to elderly people, younger ones, whoever that I come across, and wherever I find myself, accountability would be what I would speak. So thank you.
Could I just add, in the United Kingdom, and I'd be interested to hear if it's in your countries as well, the term is no longer peer-on-peer abuse, it's child-on-child abuse, which shows how serious it is. Okay. And I think as a church, we've yet to tackle this. Education's doing very well with it, but we need to do some more, I think.
Okay. Your tricks.
Sister Gilles actually asked the question I was going to ask, so I'll ask a different one. And I know that time ran tight for you this morning, so I just wanted to invite you, if there was another point that you would like to share with us before we end, I would be delighted to hear from you.
Okay. So let's wait and see if there's another question, and then if there's no, I can do that.
Thank you for another opportunity. A question arose in our group, and it's about suppression of emotion. In the area of, boys must not show emotion, you have to just be a man, be a boy, you are not a girl. And later on in life, such things might come up among the children, and as they grow up, what can the church do concerning this? And even among adults, because of the role, the type of position that people find themselves, that they are voluntarily said, this is what I want to do, but they are still human beings. If certain emotions should arise, shouldn't there be a way that the church will be able to help without condemnation? The person has not committed any offense, but it's just that the person is feeling like, if the person is a man and has a feeling towards a female, and yet the person has sworn to oath of celibacy, how shouldn't there be a way that the church would help in counseling such people? We want certain more light on this, so that these our human people would also be able to have a way of getting succor among the priests when such things, so that they won't say, how can you? Have you not gone haywire? Are you still Are you sure you are still in this profession? Please, we need to tackle this aspect. We couldn't conclude it in our group. Thank you.
So just to clarify, just to be sure that I understood what it is, you want to understand how somebody suppressing our children.
Yes.
Okay.
And saying you are a boy, so you should not. There are certain things a boy, no feeling. You must just be placid because you are a boy.
Okay.
A girl is allowed to cry and weep, but a boy is not allowed to. In our culture, in my own culture, a boy is, as a boy, you are not supposed to cry. You are supposed to bottle up. And then for adults, I know your area is just children. Or maybe this adult home, maybe we can leave it for the bishops. Can you just tackle, just tackle the area of children? Let's leave the adult home for bishop later in the afternoon. Okay. But this area of children, bottling up for male children and not allowing them to express their emotion, and then they grow up with this. Okay. What can be the effect as they are growing up, and how can we help them even in safeguarding? Is there in their minds suppression?
Thank you very much. Again, I would attempt to answer, and I want to invite people in the room, if you want to add something to what I have said, you are welcome to do that. As we heard already in the room from the different groups, most of the things have to do with culture. There are cultural differences when it comes to this thing. I understand from where you are coming from Nigeria and from Ghana and from other places. We hear about men should not express their emotions, put it in that way. And I believe that that is why I keep insisting that we need to form our parents. If the parents know what to do, they would form their children in a way that is not stereotyping, and not say that, as somebody said in the group, this is your role or this is not your role, but you teach them as human beings and see your child, whether it's a female or a male, as a person, and give them the tools that they need to develop, to survive, and to thrive in society, no matter what it is. But when the harm is already done, I know that this can have a lot of effect on the life of a young boy who has been pushed to suppress their emotion, to say that you don't have to cry. And if for some reason this particular boy is abused, there's no way that he will speak about it. Because just crying, I'm not allowed to cry. How can I say that someone abused me? Because it means that I am weak. It means that I'm not strong. So this, call it maybe macho-like training is not the best for our children. And so, as you said, there are avenues that these people can be helped through counseling to understand. Because for somebody, this can even bring about low self-esteem for them. Because if you keep hearing negative comments about who you are as a boy, it can be very dangerous for the person. So this is what I would say, but as I said, anybody in the group can add to it, and you are welcome to.
Speaking in behalf of Group 5, there was a great appreciation for the presentation on Stop It Now. the first presenter earlier. So a program that allows people with pedophilic tendencies to safely disclose this to someone and to be accompanied to manage that. So also another member of ours, I think from Czechoslovakia, mentioned they also have a program like that. So one from Australia and one from Czechoslovakia. So we were seeing the importance of having such a program in different countries. Prevention, a safe line, a safe space for people with pedophilic tendencies to call. And it kind of answers that a bit, not necessarily pedophilia, but other temptations against chastity, where a person can speak safely without judgment and be accompanied. There's the adult support group called Courage International, founded by Cardinal, what was his name? Sorry, he founded Courage in New York 40 years ago. And it's a support group for persons with homosexual tendencies who are striving to live a chaste life, to be accompanied in a safe space, to speak about their temptations against chastity in a homosexual context, and to be supported to live a chaste life.
Thank you. Can I just widen that? Courage is actually about same-sex attraction. So I know that I have nothing, I mean, I'm a bit detached from Scotland, but I know in 3 dioceses in Scotland they have what they call Courage chapters. So yeah, if you just Google Courage, you'll find out more about it.
In the Philippines, there is a high incidence of teenage pregnancy. So in our group, we were discussing about the role of social media. And another concern is, how do we break the cycle of abuse? Again, there is a growing and emerging concern of more boys being abused than girls. And in the Philippines, there is no organization working for the healing and recovery of boys. So we are growing or perpetuating potential perpetrators if we do not act on this. Thank you.
Sister, is this a contribution or it's a comment? It's a question for me. Okay. I would say that teenage pregnancy, it's a big thing in my country as well. And also sometimes early marriages. So for us, when we have to deal with issues of abuse, it expands to some of these things, even child labor and child trafficking, and other aspects that depending on the community you are going to, we can identify the particular issue that is key to them and address it based on those particular issues. Because even within the same country, different areas have peculiar situations that need to be addressed very carefully. And not only dealing with the children who are having children, but what do you do with their children, and what do you do with the mother who is a child also. So there are all of these dynamics. In some cases, we encourage the grandmother or somebody in the family to take over the care of the child, and the child who is in high school or something can go back to school and be a day student. We have a lot of boarding schools still in our country. So you can be a day student and go to school and come back and still be a mother. That's some of the ways that we try to support those people who are pregnant before they finish school. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment on this allowing boys to cry, and I think it's like I see I'm from Slovak Republic, so in a strong Catholic country, where is a strong defense because there is a fear that the gender ideology will come. So if I want to teach the children and to allow them to cry, to be weak, so there is this strong defense from the strong Catholic parents. They don't want such education. They are afraid of it. So not only in Africa, but also in Europe, it's a problem too. Even we had a book for children about sexuality. The book that was translated from Italy, and as I heard, it was used in Italy also by a bishop in dioceses, and when it was translated in Slovakia, it was forbidden by a bishop because there was one page where the boy was crying or the boy was helping with cooking and the girl was doing something different. So it was like, yeah, and it was really strong, and it took time before we accepted the book, and now the book is allowed. So this is just to comment that really it's not so easy. Thank you.
Thank you. No more questions? Or we still have 3 minutes? Would you like to go back to the points that you will be adding?
Yes. So just to go back to what you were saying, I think the final comments that I would have added was that when we have to give information or when we want to involve children or have children participate in safeguarding and also be accountable, sometimes the way to do it is to allow them to do it in their own way. As in, you can find out from the children. At least one thing that we did when we were trying to work out a logo for the safeguarding in my diocese, we decided that we would go to the schools, some of the Catholic schools, and tell them, because there are some of them that we have already gone to and tried to talk to the children and the teachers. So we were asking from the children, what does safeguarding a child mean to them? What does abuse, how will they want the world to see what abuse is like and what can be done? And if they can draw that, just in drawing. And it's amazing to see the kind of things that they came out with. You can have a whole lesson on safeguarding completely just with that, because the meaning, what abuse is for them is clear. The different kinds of abuses that they have seen or probably experienced, because you can see someone is tied and someone is beating. You could see someone carrying water, and the comment is, the friends are in school and she's out selling water. So different type of things that the children themselves put out that was very helpful to see that they are understanding what we are asking, and that we are not demanding so much. And of course, that there was also consent. We had to ask their parents and also their teachers to do that. So we are not invading their space in that sense, but that there is a way that you can help them to participate at their level as children. And similarly, that providing child-appropriate information when we want to help them, when we want to help in the formation. And for the last comment, I say that we all need to remember that accountability in the sphere of child safety, safeguarding, is a shared responsibility. It's not on one group or one person, but that it's a collaboration between all of us. Each one has a role to play, each one has a duty, and we all do it with a spirit of humility, knowing that I do not have it all. There will be some places where I would be strong and I can learn from other people by asking, by attending conferences and meeting different people, so that what I need to be able to give to the people that I am called to serve, that I could do that with confidence, with courage, and with love. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to thank you, our speaker, Sister Rejoice, for your informative presentations and your responses.